Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so we're moving into the last bit of the blaster work, and that is final detail painting on your blasters. So we're going to go back to the modulus that we camo painted, and so yeah, before you start on this, as you can see, I am in the process of taking it apart. You need to take everything off again. I know it's annoying, but it just allows for a better paint job. So, I'm going to take it all apart. Then we're going to move over to the painting table, where there will be probably a lot of little videos on bits I'm planning to do. So, I'll see you over in the painting table in a second. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. So, for this you're going to need your palette, bottle of warm water, or jug of warm water, and your paintbrushes. So, wet your brush first. This is literally the final detail painting on your blaster. So, first thing you do, you'd be looking over your blaster, see if there's any bits of paint that peeled off due to your camo painting. Sometimes happens, it's not maxes, but you do sometimes get a little bit. Next up, you'd be looking at your blaster to identify any areas of it you want to do in a colour that isn't part of your camo. So, for instance, little washers like this, maybe whole plating sections, but that is a personal choice. Personally, I'm going to be doing the areas here and these washers and smaller indents where I see them. Now there is one bit I have done beforehand, before you guys got the camera set up, and that is the flip up sight. Now the flip up on these, I have done majority of it, I've left it in the grey, except for the bit that will be facing you if you flipped it up, which I've done in a nice light limey green to give it that sort of night sighty effect. So yeah, we'll start with this. Now I'm picking some older Games Workshop paints, specifically in his case Lead Belcher. So you're going to need to shake it up nice and properly beforehand. Again, though not the same sort of extent as where you're dry brushing, you are getting rid of some of the paint on there. Now some people will use proper palette, which is always a good option. I just do this because it's what I've got. So you are looking to lightly apply this metallic. Now I'm only going over the edge of the washer, or the washer looking part at least. And that's those done. As I was saying, anything else that potentially looks like a nut or a bolt, I'm going to do as well, which means that, the indent here. Now some option you can just dab into it, which gives you a little bit more control. Others are twisting, as you can see here, where you plonk it in and you just push it in just to spray the blood out a bit. So that does have a tendency to do this to the end of the brush, which is why every so often you've got put it in the water, give it a nice little twist, just put your brushes back together. Okay, that's all the ones I want to all the bits I want to do in Leadbelcher. Now, next up, we're going to move on to paint mix that I've made myself, and I made this little bugger by accident. And this is what I personally called a worked metal look. I achieved this by mixing what used to be Games Workshop's old Mithril, so you could probably get away with Army Painter's nice light Army Painter metallic, and then mixing it with a blue ink. Not blue washes, specifically has to be an ink, which means I think currently you're now stuck going with the P3 formulas. So as you can see, this has given the rather nice light metallic a bluish feel, similar to the sort of look you'd get from a katana that's been just worked and worked and worked, and the metal has that blued look. So I'm just plonking it down these areas. Now, I know what I said earlier about this. This is a paint that is really hard for me to remake, so I can't really do what I'd like to do by putting some down on the palette. For incidentally, anyone who plays Games Workshop stuff, this blue really is a nice one if you are doing Grey Knights or any powered weaponry. Now, another option on making paints go a little bit further is to just dab them into water, put a little bit of water into your mix. It does have a tendency to just thin it out a bit at times, so if you are already using a fairly watery paint like, say, white, I wouldn't recommend it. But some of the more thickers, like the metallics, you can get away with it. Also trying to make sure you don't end up with rather thick globs of paint in there. So you're trying to just spread the paint out properly, make sure you get a nice even surface. But that's more of a finish perfectionist thing that is me. It's not required, it's just something that I prefer to do. Okay, so that's pretty much that done. Yeah, so I'd then be doing the same to the other side of the blaster and moving on to things like the trigger group next. So I'm going to let this dry upload this bit and get on to the trigger. We're going to move on to the trigger guard in a second. Okay. With the side of the blaster done, we are now moving on to the trigger group. Now, there's not really much I would personally want to do to this. The only thing really is the ribbing on the back. Now, I need to pick something that's going to mix well with the metallics. So, a little bit of old-fashioned Balthasar gold. Something similar to an old colour I loved, which was black, referred to as the brazen brass. Now, you can still get that, but unfortunately the only copies of it I've got have finally died. So, as I say, it's on the end, and just do that. Get rid of as much as you can, so you've only got what you need on the brush. Bit of water, and apply. So, sometimes you'll find that where you have painted, the paint will start to recede. You're literally just making sure if that happens to just reapply and reapply and reapply until it actually holds. Now, it might be that you've got the paint a little bit too thin, at which point you are going to have to literally just apply more paint to the end of your brush, not take off as much, and keep going as you were. And your other option, of course, is to use the top of a brush like this, bits like that, to do what you're doing on the palette. Just make sure when you do that not to mix any water in, or you are literally just going to start ruining your paints. Okay, and there we have the back ribbing. Now there's not much else I'd rather do to this blaster, so I'm going to call that on those bits. I'm going to do the same to that in a second. Might as well, while we're all in one video, move on to the next bit. Jam door. Now, I'm personally going to keep this jam door black and just do a little bit of work to make it match with the rest of this, which is again going to be going back to this metallic lead belcher and just painting in the centre section there. Get a lot on this for this because you've got plenty of time to do this one. But you can see what I mean. If you mix your paint with too much water, that will happen. And if there's too much on the end of the brush, just adding more paint to it is going to give you a problem, so you just get more paint. As opposed to the paint you've already got mixed with water, and just start applying as per, trying to thicken up your mix. See, there you go. That is your paint remixed and thickened up a bit so it actually applies. Okay, and there's the top done. That's all I really wanted to do for that. One last bit that I will do before that, but don't really need to video it. I'm going to be doing a similar bolt gun to the barrel attachment point on the end of the barrel. And once I've done up the bits on the other side, we'll move on to the next step, which will be to basically wash the whole blaster to give it a dirty, lived-in effect. So, going to get on with these bits, let it all dry, and then we'll move on to washing it. So, see you in a second. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we're back. Now, we have applied a dark wash to the blaster shell. This gives it a nice, dirtied look. And you'd be applying this to the trigger group, the front sight area, the battery tray cover, and any other external components you'll be seeing on this one. So, that leaves this blaster pretty much done. The only thing we'd have left to do is protecting it against LARP. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a good one. I'll see you in the next one.